have to admit that I really do love this model from Bachmann. When it was first released, I just fell in love with it, and it's one of the few models which I just can't seem to stop myself from buying more and more examples. Hi there everyone, welcome back to another video here on my channel with me, Jennifer Kirk. It's really great to see you, I hope I find you well. And today we've got a box opening review of a Bachmann locomotive for a change, and this is one that's currently in the sales. So I thought I'd make you aware of a really great bargain if this is your kind of thing. I spotted this on the Rails of Sheffield website for £74.50. Now we're going to have a link down below just to take you there if you want to get one of these for yourself. I think it's actually a really incredible price for a model which I liked it from when it first came out. And don't forget today as well that this video comes to you in association with our sponsor, Train-O-Matic, who produce DCC decoders that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. They're compatible with all and any makes and brands of locomotives, and they just work first time, every time. The easiest, most hassle-free decoders on the market. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a closer look. Well, here it is, the Robinson 04. Previously, these were the Robinson 8K. That's what the Great Central Railway knew them as. And I love these models. I must admit, there's very few models that I just keep buying more and more because I love them so much. The Class 25s are one of those, but the Robinson 04 is another. So when it cropped up in the Rails of Sheffield sale, I thought I just can't resist it at the price of £74.50 they currently have it at. And that's actually quite a keen price, well down off the current RRP is about £150, something like that. So I thought I've just got to get this. It's one that I didn't already have. They do also have an LNER version for a little bit less, actually. I think it's about £69. So there is a bit of choice. Now we've got a catalogue number on the end there, 31-004A, Robinson Class 04, 63762, BR Black, early emblem, weathered. Now, late emblem weathered was produced a few years ago now, actually, by Hatton's Model Railways. It has now sold out, but this is going to be an ideal accompaniment on Weir Yard to go with that locomotive. And like I said, I can't resist this particular class of locomotives. And indeed, if Rails still have any of the LNER examples in the next couple of months when Mr. Piggybank allows for it, I may actually be quite tempted to pick that up as well. But for now, I'm going to make do with this. There is a little extra detail bag. I'll just quickly show you that. It's got a piece there for if you fit a speaker in for a sound chip, just to help improve the sound to kind of cup that speaker. And then we've got some vacuum hoses and the front hook coupling and the 3-link couplings as well. We've got a rear one too, and they actually do look quite substantial, so I'd wager actually that if properly fitted you could use them as a working 3-link coupling, so that's actually quite interesting to see. Right, let's get the locomotive out, and this is actually the first time I've had it out of the box. So what you're seeing really is the first I'm seeing of this. Now, I do have the similar weathered late crest version that was done as a limited edition from Hatton's, but I'm just looking here. What's interesting is there does appear to be a little bit of, it's like a very light oil or something in there. So I can only conclude that's something from the factory, but it does wipe off, so no big deal there. Although we do also have, no, it's just a piece of plastic from the packaging, so that's all right. So this really is the first time I've had it out of the packaging, so just checking it over there, and there's a few little bits of just, I guess, flash off the packaging, so nothing to detract about. The locomotive itself originally designed and built for the Great Central Railway, but then during the First World War these were selected by the Rail Operations Division, or the ROD, to become their standard heavy freight locomotive. So actually the Rail Operations Division had built an awful lot of these. Places like Bayer Peacock turned a lot of these out, and Gorton Works as well, and they worked all over the world. Some of these ended up out in Australia. I believe that some may have made it out as far as China and Turkey, places like that. So there's certainly a lot of them got out and about there. And actually the ones out in Australia, I think they had something like 11 or 12 of them, although not all were ever running at the same time. They lasted through into the mid-1970s in frontline use. There are 3 that survive into preservation that I am currently aware of. One in the UK, which is in the possession of the National Railway Museum, but I believe is actually on long-term loan to the Great Central Railway. And then there are 2 out in Australia. Neither of the Australian examples work, although I do believe that the National Railway Museum one has been restored to working order. First impressions out of the box is that actually there's a really good weight to this locomotive, so adhesion isn't an issue. And if my other examples are anything to go by, these are a faultless performer. They are well balanced and do hold the track really well. They're a 280 wheel arrangement, and they actually have a very interesting and very distinctive splasher arrangement. So we have a splasher for the front driving wheel, but then a big splasher, you can see here, extends the full length over the rear 3 driving wheels, and it does give them this very distinctive and eye-catching shape. We've also got the front overhang there with the front bogie underneath. Again, very distinctive on this class, and it's something that Bachmann have captured particularly well. The connecting rods are actually a little bit simplistic. These have inside valve gear, so there's not a lot to see on the outside, certainly not anything as complicated as something like a Walschatz's valve gear. But actually what you do get is fairly utilitarian but crisp and nicely done. And these connecting rods, they're nicely fluted and jointed and actually really do look the part. One detraction I have spotted though is that the weathering does appear to come off very easily. In fact, I've just wiped my thumb over there and we've got shiny connecting rods. The paint has not adhered to these connecting rods particularly well and is very prone to rubbing off. So that is something of a detraction. I can also see that on the wheels, these also seem to be a little bit prone to the paint rubbing off. It's just not adhering to the nickel silver metal particularly well. I'm not really quite sure what else they could have done, although the black that the wheel centres are painted in does seem much more resilient. The rest of the locomotive, it's a very plain utilitarian livery. These locomotives were turned out in the British Rail period in this plain, all over black, with just the British Rail Cycling Lion crest on the tender and the locomotive's number there on the cab side. They were a very utilitarian workhorse, but that made them very reliable as well, and Bachmann have captured that look and feel of this locomotive very, very well. In terms of other detailing, we've got the safety valve covers on here. These are turned metal, also weathered down, but actually do seem a little bit more resilient with that weathering paint when I give them a good rub. We've got a whistle there behind, a separately applied detail piece, and we've got some pretty nice fine pipework and handrails, which are all factory applied on there, and really nicely done. Now I'm just going to check if these have an opening smoke box door. Some of the locomotives from Bachmann did, others didn't, and I've never actually checked on a Robinson 04. Actually, it doesn't seem to be an openable smoke box door, but what you can see there is the separately applied smoke box dart, and that's really nice, quite a fine feature. We've then got the locomotive's number, tampo printed on a plate there, and the shed plate underneath. Yeah, it does seem perfectly legible, 38D, although actually on closer inspection, the 8, I'm not sure whether the fuzziness is because of the underlying tampo printing or because the weathering over the top has muted it. I'm going to err on the side of caution and say it's possibly more the weathering than anything else. Front buffers, completely sprung. They've got some really nice buffer heads on there. They've got these very characteristic, quite large oval buffers, and a factory applied vacuum hose too. The front coupling comes ready fitted, and I'm just looking there. It is a slimline tension lock coupling, and it's in a NEM pocket, so you can remove this completely, or alternatively you can put in another type of coupling of your choosing. If you do remove this, it does make it a lot easier to fit that 3-link coupling and drawbar gear on the front buffer beam. To be honest with you, I would have preferred to have seen the front drawbar hook applied there and actually just lose the 3-link coupling. And I think that that might have been a better compromise, because it's something you do notice, the absence of that hook, but the 3 links are going to foul that coupling a little bit if you choose to try and keep both in place. The front bogie is really nicely done. It's quite fine, it's very free running, and it does have quite a range of free movement, which is really good for holding of the track. The brake gear underneath is all factory applied, so no messing about needed with that, and it is good to see. It does seem to be hit and miss with manufacturers these days, whether they come with or without it factory applied, but Bachmann do seem to have more gone over to make sure that you don't have to bother too much with that. The wheels, it's got all-wheel pickup on the actual driven wheels, and it's a full 8-coupled chassis. We've got a problem again with these very slender sanding pipes. They're so easily caught and bent. And I actually injured myself on a previous review. Ow, ah, I've just been stabbed. So do be a little bit careful when handling it, because they are, by necessity of the fine metal, they are quite strong but very fine, and they will stab you in the finger if you're not careful. These largely seem to line up with the wheels, although at the back I've got one which sticks out just a little bit. The tender itself also has all-wheel pickup, and it's connected to the locomotive by these set of wires. What's interesting actually is, as far as I can see, it's actually very difficult to unplug the wires from the locomotive without doing a little bit of dismantling. But the tender drawbar is something that can be slipped apart, so you can end up accidentally putting a lot of pressure on this wire by not coupling the locomotive to the tender properly, and that for me is something I know that other manufacturers have addressed, and it would be nice if Bachmann did look into this, because I think it is an area where a little bit of improvement would go a long way. You can also see on the underside the grate in the tender for where the speaker would mount if you wish to sound fit this model. I'm going to show you a little bit later on a DCC fitting guide just to show you how to get a regular DCC chip in there. But if sound is the way you want to go, you're going to have to go and browse something like the ESU range to get an appropriate decoder. I'd just like to take this moment to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Train-O-Matic. They're made by enthusiasts for enthusiasts, and these really are a great DCC decoder that just work out of the box. It's everybody's dream. It doesn't matter what the manufacturer brand of locomotive is. These are just hassle-free. Minimum fuss, maximum pleasure. Just plug in and go. Check them out at the website www.train-o-matic.com, and it gives you full detailed description of the products that are available and also how to use them and the additional super power packs that go with them if you so choose. The Cycling Lion is pretty nicely done. The weathering mutes it down a little bit, but actually I think the general package is really well done. Again, it's quite a simplistic tender. These were very rugged and reliable utilitarian designs, but Bachmann have gone a long way to do everything to this to get the detail that should be there in place. We've got the handbrake stanchion on the back here. We've got the holder for the fire irons. And there's also some tampo printing on there too. I can't actually read it with my naked eyes, but I'm sure that under magnification we might get a good chance to see what's going on there. The full plate is here in the upright position, but actually, as you see there, it is hinged, and that That's actually a really nice feature. So for ease of transport, it's in the upright position, but once you've got this on your track and coupled together, I really like the fact that you can then get the full plate down and it looks so much better. So that is a massive plus point for me. If I turn it around and we look inside the cab, this is one of the little quirky charms of this class of locomotive. I love the white cab interior, and then we've got all that backhead detail, and that is really nicely done with the pipework. The control wheels are all separately applied, and right there at the top, we've got gauges that are tempo printed, so you really can see the needles and the markings on them. And I really do like this level of tempo printing that we're starting to see coming from all of the major manufacturers. I really do like it a lot. We've got a wire surround at the back, and this is something that on other models I've found is a little bit delicate. It pops out ever so easily, but on this model it does seem pretty firmly attached, which is good. The wooden floor is picked out in an appropriate colour, and actually Bachmann have got the wood, the kind of worn, unpainted wood look just right on this. It's got the right level of dirt and grime to that colour, and I think they've absolutely nailed it. The coal load is removable, but there's no noticeable seams around the edge, and you're going to need something like a jeweler's screwdriver to prise that out. And I believe it is a weighted load, which just gives that extra weight to the tender. So as it is, I'm going to leave this in because the actual moulding work on the heap of coal does look pretty good to my eyes. The back of the tender, we've got this very characteristic fluting out at the tender tops, and this is being captured very, very well by Bachmann. There's plenty of detail on the top that should be there with the water filler and the like, and we've also got a lamp iron in the middle of the back there, which appears to be a separately applied detail. The handrails are wire separately applied from the factory, and then we've got sprung buffers on the back of the tender. Unlike the front of the locomotive, which has those oval buffers, these are just plain circular buffers. And then to round all this off, we've got a coupling in a NEM pocket, which is a slimline tension lock coupling, but again, you can very easily rotate that out and put anything that you like on. Again, I would have preferred to see the drawbar in the back ready applied and maybe lose the 3-link coupling as the compromise, but Bachmann have chosen to go down the route of having that in the separately applied detail pack. Overall, this is a really nice package, available now at a really favourable price in the rail sale. So I'd suggest to you, get them while you can, because when they've gone, well, I'm afraid they're unlikely to be replenished, and this is a model that is surely not to be missed. So we're up here in Weir Yard, and we're going to be putting a DCC decoder into this model, and I'm going to show you just how easy that is. And we're doing this today with a DCC decoder supplied by our sponsor, Trainomatic, and you can find a link to them down below in the description box. So without further ado, let's get to it. So we've got the locomotive here, and the first thing we need to do is get the top off the tender. That's where the DCC socket is. So grasp it carefully, turn it upside down, and then a small crosshead jeweler's screwdriver. There are 4 screws to undo, and these are actually quite tiny, so do be careful not to round the tops. We've got a screw there, and then the same at the back, just out of the way either side of the coupler. So I'm going to go ahead and just very carefully get those loosened up. And again, as they come out, I'm just going to put them somewhere safe so that the carpet gods don't eat them. And you might feel the tender top just come a little bit loose in your hand as you do this. Just make sure you don't fumble the thing. So I'm going to turn that back over, and then very carefully we're going to just wiggle this tender top free. There. It's just a little bit tight. Right, so once we've got the top off, what you can see is inside the tender we have got a lot of space. This is one of the roomiest models that's currently on the market. So there is plenty of room there to fit anything you want. And you can see at the back here, we've got the blanking plate on top of here. So we're not going to be bothered with a sound decoder. What we are going to do is we're going to fit a 21-pin Train-O-Matic decoder, and I've pre-fitted this with their Super Power Pack capacitor. This is a programmable Power Pack Stay Alive type capacitor, and that will mean that this locomotive will run super smooth, super silky, even down to very, very low speeds. So I'm going to go ahead and get this fitted in there, and as you can see, there's going to be no problem fitting this in. So first up, I'm going to just very carefully lever off the blanking plate. Apply a little bit of upward motion either side, a little bit at a time. You don't want to just rip it all up from one side or you will bend the pins. So just very carefully, and there we have it. We've got that clear. And then we are going to make sure we line up the pin 1. And this is dead easy. Just push down nice and firm. And then the power pack itself, we are going to just turn that around there. And I'm just going to get some electrical tape. And the whole point of this is really just to tie these wires down so that they don't get trapped under the tender sides when we put that top back on. So I'm going to go ahead, just cut a little tiny piece of black electrical tape, get these wires roughly where I want them, and then use that tape to just keep them in check, just like that. And then let's get this tender top back on, and then we'll see just how well this Train-O-Matic decoder with the Super Power Pack will power this Bachmann locomotive. When it comes to the score, I have to admit that I really do love this model from Bachmann. When it was first released, I just fell in love with it, and it's one of the few models which I just can't seem to stop myself from buying more and more examples. It runs pretty well, it's got a great haulage capacity, and it's very easy to DCC fit. And overall, I think this package is pretty good. For the finish, well, the weathering that's factory applied, I was a little bit bothered about that so readily rubbing off the connecting rods. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something that maybe Bachmann ought to look into for the paint and the adherence to that, and it can end up with some very weird splodgy effects. As for the rest of the finish, I thought it was pretty well applied, and overall the factory weathering was pretty good. So for finish, I'm going to give this an 8.8 out of 10. Functionality, well, it runs well, and it's got a lot of pickups between the locomotive and the tender, which ensures that you get good electrical continuity. Haulage capacity is also pretty good for a steam model, and these do tend to normally be hampered in model form, so it's great to see a model that is finely balanced and able to pull a decent sized train. So overall, I'm going to put functionality at a 9.1 out of 10. Ease of use. What I'm particularly pleased with these is the ease with which you can DCC fit them. And actually the room inside the tender is pretty spacious, and I've found it no problem to fit sound decoders in some of my other members of my fleet. So putting a regular decoder in was actually a complete doddle. And because you're only having to take the tender top off, it's actually not too bad for any user to do. One detraction for me, though, was that semi-permanently coupled tender drawbar assembly, where the wires are permanently coupled but the drawbar isn't, and certainly when DCC fitting, that can make for some awkward moments where you're having to hold a locomotive and tender chassis together whilst trying to undo screws. So ease of use, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Aesthetics, I think Bachmann have really captured the look of the prototype. This locomotive very much has a special presence to it, and I don't see a foot put wrong on this. The only potential detraction for me was those drawbar couplings, but it's only a minor detraction. They are there in the detail pack, but they're there for a user to fit. And I think the 3-link couplings, you probably have to remove them from the hook if you want reliable operation with the tension locks intact. So I'm going to give this a 9.9 out of 10. Value for money. Well, the RRP for these now is pushing around the £150 mark, which is actually quite expensive. However, At the moment, a good number of the members of this class can be found for a very favourable price through the sales on a number of retailers, and we've put a link to Rails of Sheffield down below, which will help you find your own version of this. At £74.50, it actually does, in the present climate, offer a really good value for money. And as I said before, the London and North Eastern Railway example can be had for even less at around £69. So value for money in the present climate with the present prices, I'm going to put this at a 9.8 out of 10. So overall score, I'm really happy to give this a 46.6 out of 50. And that is actually still a really good, healthy score. I think it captures the look of the prototype really, really well, and it is a pretty reliable runner. There are a few features which I especially like, such as that posable fall plate, which really is a boon compared to some of the fixed ones that we've seen on locomotives from other manufacturers. And in terms of ease of DCC fitting, I think a lot of manufacturers are taking that on board and making it a doddle to fit a chip into these things. For the price it's at, well, I've got no hesitation to bring it into my fleet. My only reservation is the weathering applied to the wheels and the connecting rods. It seems a little easy to rub off. But that said, once you know about that, just handle it with care. So overall, I can recommend wholeheartedly adding one of these to your collection. Well, I hope that video has been informative to you. Don't forget to like this video and share it too. Let other people know about the stuff we're doing on this channel. Also, if you're not already done so, subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, it's been really, really great to have your company. I've enjoyed being able to show you this model. And of course, don't forget, if you want one of these yourself, then check out our link down below. That will link you straight through to Rails of Sheffield, who currently have this item on sale at the time of recording. Until next time, take really good care of yourself. I hope to catch you then. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, but a special thanks go out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, and Helen Sink. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.